Good morning, and welcome to another ironic introduction to another video. Today, I'm going to be recommending an alternate path for Alliance Wars Season 10. Now, this is under the assumption that the player's skill across your alliance is fairly even, and the way the Alliance Wars Season 10 map is set up is it's pretty much two sections, right? So you have the first section here, everybody meets up in the middle, they handle the standard two-faced nodes here, and then they redistribute accordingly. And previously it wasn't like this. You essentially could only access half the map, which you committed to. Like if once you were on the left side, you could only go left or middle, once you reach past, and then the middle could like tag out with you. So it was pretty standard to run a linear path. And there was no real reason, no compelling reason not to do so, as the nodes were fairly distributed, and you can handle the map accordingly, everybody handling their own path. But now, with the introduction of these cross-linked nodes, where one fight has to happen with an additional node, and these nodes being things like buffet or masochism, etc., an actual like challenging node, the distribution of these cross-linked nodes is actually pretty uneven. If you notice here, between paths 1 through 3, there are no forced cross-linked node fights. As well as in the middle here, these are cross-linked, but these are shared between all 9 paths, as it is a fight boss. So you could let whoever's the healthiest or the best player on your team really take that down. And then paths 7 and 8 collectively have to take down 4 cross-linked paths. They could handle only potentially 2 or even 3 if you distribute the other like mini boss to the person running path 9. But then the person running path 9 has to fight a mini boss on a cross-linked node, and that's just not something you really want to add to the challenge. I feel like you really want to supply less. Like in my opinion, ideally you really want the person taking path 7 to clear their node, and the person running path 8 to then clear node 12. This will remove the nodes from the mini boss, and you guys can all progress normally. Now here's where it's different. This is where my recommendation comes into play. In previous Alliance Wars, there was no cross-map play. You could not go from the left to the right, and now we find ourselves in the position where we can. And because of that, I think that drastically changes how nodes should be taken and how paths should be done. Because of these cross-linked nodes, I think paths 1 through 3, once they reach the middle, should cross map and then redistribute along these nodes here, and those taking paths 7 through 9, once they reach the middle, should cross right over, and then the middle path will proceed as normal, just to keep things simple, and then with minor flexible adjustments based on how your alliance is proceeding in the war. You might like decide to take on different nodes if you know you're only going to go for a half clear, or maybe people are feeling low and they can't full clear the paths and you're just trying to get to the boss. This really offers a lot of flexibility in that regard, but under the assumption that everybody is clearing their paths, I think that the best way to divvy up these nodes is by crossing over. Now, one of the common concerns that I can think of is, when you're taking your path, usually the nodes are very similar, and that is still true. Like if I pull up the node distribution here, and let me zoom in here, just looking at, let's say, path 1, and we'll just do hard just because it's convenient. You can see, you have Starburst, recovery with masochism, and buffet as well. And so, overall, these nodes are very separate, but at the same time challenging and require mechanics to them. Besides the Starburst nodes, which I would make the argument are champion based, and you can make the argument that for recovery 100%, you also want to be champion based. But if you're aware of the fact that you'll be handling these secondary nodes by crossing over from paths 7 through 9, these shouldn't be a problem just by prepping your pool. I think that the one path that people will point out the most is specifically this path here, the poison and bleed immunity nodes. But I believe that immunity to bleed, immunity to poison and bleed, I think that for the most part, these are the non-consequential nodes in Alliance War, as long as you're not trying to bring Archangel or Ronin or Blade, or champions of this type of nature. These nodes aren't a problem for you. So again, as long as people are running things like Corvus Glaive, Ghost, even Omega Red, handle these nodes just fine. And those champions, if I come down here, those champions handle these nodes fairly well as well, depending on where you distribute. So with that being said, I think that it's not a long stretch to say that paths 7, 8 through 9 could split with 1 through 3. And what that would allow, if I jump back here, is you start off with your standard 1 through 9, and the person taking path 7, they clear their node. They move up, and this node has been cleared for them, so they don't have to fight this cross-linked, and they meet at the junction. They then move across, and they take this line down here, and they have standard nodes from there. They can build their roster around the first set of nodes as well as the second set of nodes. The person taking path 8 will move. This node will be cleared for them. They will clear node 12 to remove the additional outgoing effects onto these two. They will cross, and then they will move down the middle like normal. And the person taking 9 will do the same. You should probably have this person clear the mini boss if people on paths 7 and 8 took damage, just to kind of like conserve the health over your overall group, if this is like group A, B, and C. And then they will cross and take their right path. And what this allows is for the people in the middle, these three, to distribute these two mini bosses among themselves, either the best players or sacrificing champions if they need to, in order to get the nodes down as a team. And then the person taking path 1 can meet in the middle, cross over, and then continue what was supposed to be path 7's, and they can clear their node here. And the person taking path 2 can do the same, cross over, move into the middle, have this node cleared for them, so they don't have to face this cross-linked, and then they can handle this cross-linked as well, and then progress. And then path 3 can cross over standard. You could make the argument that path 3 and path 9 don't actually have to switch, and they really don't, but in the sense of I'm expecting path 9 to clear the mini boss here and path 3 to clear the mini boss here. That's kind of like the distribution I took. You could make the argument that path 3 could clear the mini boss here and path 9 could clear, and then they just move on forward. And that's standard. You know, really, you don't need to have 3 and 9 switch. It's really just the 1, 2, and the 7 and 8 switch. But what is really awesome about this is the flexibility. I think that we are going to step away from the Alliance Wars where you have a rigid path and you take your path and you progress. I think that it's very much so going to be people moving in and then determining where they are once they've reached this stage. Because a lot of the nodes, while some of them are very, non-interactive and require a specific champion selection, a lot of the nodes can be played through with simply mechanics. And because they are mechanic-based, it doesn't really matter who you brought to them. Excluding some like Psychic Thorns, where it's really relevant who you're bringing, or Inverted Immunity Bleed, where it's really relevant who you're bringing. Excluding some of those types of nodes, a lot of them can be taken down just through strong skill. And with that, it really allows this flexibility of everybody meeting here with the 9 and then saying, okay, this is what I brought and this is what I have, and then redistributing based on what's best for the Alliance as a whole. And I really think that that would be good for Alliance Wars in general, because this standard path takedown, while very interesting and enticing, it's not fruitful for Alliance Wars, because what you essentially have is at the very top tier is you have all 9 paths consistently being taken down and the boss being consistently taken down, and then it really just comes down to defender diversity and how many times your alliance members died along the way. And really, that is one way to measure it. And I think that at the end, when you're like really tallying it up between two really well-matched alliances, I think that is a great way to score points. But in reality, I believe that what Alliance Wars should be is one alliance was only able to clear 7 out of 9 paths. They had to sacrifice 2 paths to clear the boss, and the other alliance cleared 8 out of 9 paths, and that's the alliance that won. It feels a lot more rigid and fair. You don't feel like you lost your Alliance War because one person in your team had to use an Alliance War team revive. You feel like you won it because as a whole you were able to take down more paths. And I really hope that they push this Alliance War further in this direction, really encouraging not being able to clear the entire map and really having to struggle and work as a team to clear the whole thing. And I know that's not reasonable at the very highest tier, but the lower down you go, the more likely it is that your alliance is sacrificing paths in order to move towards the boss and clear it together. I apologize for the dogs. That's all I have to say about this, so I will talk to you later.